So let's look at a couple of situations. Here's one that I'll present. We're at the We Care Child Development Center. It's a full-day program. And Maria is a teacher in a class for threes and fours, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. Her daily schedule includes nap time after lunch, which is very typical for programs for children of that age. Timothy's mom, Joan, has said to Maria, "Don't let Timothy nap. He stays up too late when he's napped in the afternoon." So why does this what is it about this situation that has Maria having some questions in her mind?
This is a hard one. You know, this was one of the first cases that we used when we started talking about the code, when we started going on the road with it. We call it the NAP case. And we've looked at it hard for a long time. And every group that I go into to do an ethics workshop, and I say to them, "Does this sound familiar?" And at least half the people in the room, usually 3/4, say, "Oh, yeah." So it is a recurring dilemma. It's a real dilemma.
Yeah.
And it's not a trivial dilemma. Early on, someone said, "Oh, that's just silly." It is not silly. That's real. So it happens often, and very often in early childhood programs, because of this situation where you have what Ken Kipnis called a complex client situation. You have a child, you have a family member to deal with. And so the family member may not have the same ideas you have about what would be the best thing for that child in a particular time or place. So that's the situation. The mom wants one thing, you think the child needs something else. You're pretty sure that child needs to nap. The mom is pretty sure that she needs to get to work in the morning and she needs to get Timothy to school, and if he naps, it doesn't work. So it's truly a dilemma. There are two justifiable solutions. You let him nap, you don't let him nap.
You don't let him nap, right.
It's not really that simple. The conflicting responsibilities in that case are very obvious. You have a responsibility to the child. His well-being requires that he naps. You have a responsibility to the mother. If you're a private, this was a private center, she has found you. She has enrolled her child in the center. She is paying tuition, and she thinks she has absolute right to determine what would be best for her. So it's truly a dilemma. So you look at the core values, and in this case, they really are not that helpful. The core values say that you will base your work on the knowledge of child development, which would suggest that Timothy should nap if he needs a nap. Developmentally, that makes sense. You also have something in the core values about appreciating the bond between child and family, about respecting individuals, respecting the mom. So the core values in this situation really don't get you very far. But we're going to look at the code, and when we look at the code where a situation involves a child, the first thing we would always do would go to principle 1.1, which says, above all, we will not harm children. So that's the first thing we think about, and that raises the question, is it harmful to Timothy not to nap? And you think maybe it is, but you're not sure, but that's the first thing you have to consider. Now, this might be harmful. This situation might be harmful to Timothy, but we got to explore that a little further. This is a case that lends itself beautifully to ethical finesse. And in the workshops, when we first did this case, people would take hours discussing the case. At some point, Ken Kipnis, who was working with us in the early conversations, at one point Ken looked at me and said, "You know, if this was a group of lawyers, they would have been done with this half an hour ago." And the early childhood people are saying, well, what are the bedtime routines? What time does he go to bed? Are they roughhousing before he goes to bed? Is he having Ovaltine or cocoa? Has he had Coke recently? And so, you know, is there another classroom where they don't nap? Have they tried waking him up early? Have they tried putting him in another room with books? You know, so there's many ways we can finesse this situation, and that would be the best thing to do. So if we can find a way to make this problem go away and let Timothy be okay and let mom get him to bed early, that's what we'll try to do. But when we did the workshops, we wanted to push people to really look at the hard ethical question. So what we would do in the workshops would be to say, okay, we tried putting him in another classroom where they don't nap, and he fell over in the block area, asleep. We tried giving him Ovaltine at night. We tried changing the bedtime routine. It didn't work. So if you get to the point where you say, we tried everything, and Timothy is just a mess all afternoon, if he doesn't have his nap, every single group of early childhood educators that worked with us in developing the code said, we have to say to the mother, we're sorry. We have to let him nap, because we really believe we've really thought about this carefully and looked at him carefully and tried everything we could, and we can see that this child needs to nap. And so we can't honor your request.
Another thing I thought of regarding this case is another responsibility is that for an early childhood teacher, you have the responsibility to follow all program policies. So that's part of it as well, to remember that, well, our program policy is that children at this age, we do schedule nap time for them. Now, of course, one of the things about young children is you can't make them sleep. I mean, they will fall asleep if they're tired, and when we have a restful time in the afternoon, then many, if not most, if not all children will fall asleep in a classroom. The other thing we have a responsibility for is to inform families of what those program policies are.
That's right.
So, did we do that in this instance? Did Maria's program let the mother know? Well, children do nap in this program, so it should not have been a surprise.
One of the things we found as we've worked through ethical situations in a lot of different things, some of the administrator ethics, is that good policies really help.
Right.
And if we bring families in and say, these are our policies on reporting child abuse. These are our policies on different kinds of routines. These are our policies on food, and you make that really clear in the beginning, you can save yourself a huge amount of grief later on.
Yeah, true.